Good evening and welcome to Sun Temple. We're so happy you joined us. My name is Alba and I use she, her pronouns. This is our final 2025 observance and I'm so happy you're here. As always, this service is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Please remember that I'm at my parents' house right now, so the audio quality will be a little different without my microphone set up. Also remember our ongoing snowman decorating event, regular end-of-year survey, and finally New Year's game night. We'll open today with our opening words, which will appear on the slide behind you. Please listen as I read the words aloud or read them aloud along with me. We welcome you into the light of the gods and light this flame in celebration. May its brightness symbolize our connection to the gods and the natural world. May you join us in this community of faith, cherishing love and with open hearts. So we're continuing our theme this month of wealth, and we have several readings today, so this is going to be a long section about our readings. We have the fir tree and the bramble, the dog in the shadow, the goose that laid golden eggs, and Heracles and Plutus, all by Aesop, translated by V.S. Vernon Jones, a section of Hesiod's Works and Days, translated by Charles Abraham Elton, and Symposium, and a section from both Symposium and Republic by Plato, translated by Benjamin Yount. So we'll begin with the Aesop's Fables, and these are shorter than you will remember, but they're still very good to learn our method lessons from. So the fir tree and the bramble. A fir tree was boasting to a bramble and said, somewhat contemptuously, "You poor creature, you are of no use whatever. Now look at me. I am useful for all sorts of things, particularly when men build houses. They can't do without me then." But the bramble replied, "Ah, that's all very well, but you wait till they come with axes and saws to cut you down, and then you'll wish you were a bramble and not a fir." The dog and the shadow. A dog was crossing a plank bridge over a stream with a piece of meat in its mouth when he happened to see his own reflection in the water. He thought it was another dog with a piece of meat twice as big, so he let go his own and flew at the other dog to get the larger piece. But of course all that happened was that he got neither, for one was only a shadow and the other was carried away by the current. The goose that laid golden eggs. A man and his wife had the good fortune to possess a goose which laid a golden egg every day. Lucky though they were, they soon began to think that they were not getting rich fast enough, and imagining the bird must be made of gold inside, they decided to kill it in order to secure the whole store of precious metal at once. But when they cut it open, they found it was just like any other goose. Thus they neither got rich all at once as they'd hoped, nor enjoyed any longer the daily addition to their wealth. Hercules and Plutus. When Hercules was received among the gods and was entertained at a banquet by Jupiter, he responded courteously to the greetings of all with the exception of Plutus, the god of wealth. When Plutus approached him, he cast his eyes upon the ground and turned away and pretended not to see him. Jupiter was surprised at this conduct on his part and asked why, after having been so cordial with all the other gods, he had behaved like that to Plutus. "Sir," said Hercules, "I do not like Plutus, and I will tell you why. When we were on land together, I always noticed that he was to be found in the company of scoundrels." So we'll now move into the Hesiod section, which is much longer. Love every seemly toil, that so the store of fruitful seasons heap thy garner's floor. From labor men returns of wealth behold, flocks in their fields and in their coffers gold. From labor shalt thou with love be blessed of men and gods, the slothful they detest. Not toil but sloth shall ignominious be, toil, and the slothful man shall envy thee, shall view thy growing wealth with altered sense, for glory virtue walk with opulence. Thou like a god, since labor still is found, the better part shalt live beloved, renowned. If, as I counsel, thou thy witless mind, though weak and empty as the veering wind, from others' coveted possessions turned, to thrift compel and food by labor earned, shame which our aid or injury we find, shame to the needy clings of evil kind. Shame to the low, indigence declining tends, bold zeal to wealth's proud pinnacle ascends. But shun extorted riches, O far best, the heaven-sent wealth without reproach possessed. Whoever shall mines of hoarded gold command, by fraudful tongue or by rapacious hand, as oft betides when lucre lights the flame, and shamelessness expels the better shame, him shall the god cast down, in darkness hurled, his name, his offspring, wasted from the world. The goods for which he pawned his soul decay, the breath and shining bubble of a day. Alike the man of sin is he confessed, who spurns the suppliant, and who wrongs the guest, who climbs by lure of stolen embraces led, with ill-timed act a brother's marriage bed, who dares by crafty wickedness abuse his trust, and robs the orphans of their dues, who, on the threshold of afflictive age, his hoary parent stings with taunting rage. On him shall Jove in anger look from high, and deep requite the dark iniquity. But wholly thou from these refrain thy mind, weak as it is, and wavering as the wind. With thy best means perform the ritual part, outwardly pure and spotless at the heart, and on thy altar let unblemished thighs in fragrant savour to the immortals rise. Or thou in other sort mayst well dispense wine offerings and the smoke of frankincense, ere on the nightly couch thy limbs be laid, or when the stars from sacred sunrise fade. So shall thy piety accepted move their heavenly natures to propitious love. Ne'er shall thy heritage divided be, but others part their heritage to thee. Let friends oft bidden to thy feast repair, let not the foe the social moment share. Chief to thy open board the neighbor call, when unforeseen domestic troubles fall. The neighbor runs ungirded, kinsmen wait, and lingering for their raiment hasten late. As the good neighbor is our prop and stay, so is the bad a pitfall in our way. Thus blessed or cursed, we this or that obtain, the first a blessing and the last a bane. How should thy ox by chance untimely die, the evil neighbor look and passes by. So we'll now move into our Symposium and Republic section, and it's important to remember that Symposium is a series of speeches given to a group of people sitting together, and then Plato records these speeches as he remembers them, and that's how this book is formatted. So this is Socrates talking to a group of men about the time he talked to Diotima in his youth. Just so this is clear what's happening in this chunk. And Symposium is also focused on love, so that's what this one is, but you'll see why we're doing it later on. What then is love? I asked. Is he mortal? No. What then? As in the former instance, he is neither mortal nor immortal, but a mean between the two. What is he, Diotima? He is a great spirit, and like all spirits, he is intermediate between the divine and the mortal. And what, I said, is his power? He interprets, she replied, between gods and men, conveying and taking across the gods the prayers and sacrifices of men, and to men the commands and replies of the gods. He is the mediator who spans the chasm which divides them, and therefore in him all is bound together, and through him the arts of the prophet and the priest, their sacrifices and mysteries and charms, and all prophecy and incantation find their way. For God mingles not with man, but through love, all the intercourse and converse of God with man, whether awake or asleep, is carried on. The wisdom which understands this is spiritual, all other wisdom, such as of arts and handicrafts, is mean and vulgar. Now these spirits or intermediate powers are many and diverse, and one of them is love. And who, I said, was his father, and who was his mother? The tale, she said, will take time. Nevertheless, I will tell you. On the birthday of Aphrodite, there was a feast for the gods, at which the god Poros or Plenty, who was the son of Metis or Discretion, was one of the guests. When the feast was over, Penia or Poverty, as the manner is on such occasions, came about the doors to beg. Now Plenty, who was the worse for nectar, went into the garden of Zeus and fell into a heavy sleep, and Poverty, considering her own straitened circumstances, plotted to have a child by him, and accordingly she lay down at his side and conceived Love, who, partly because he is a natural lover of the beautiful, and because Aphrodite herself is beautiful, and also because he was born on her birthday, is her follower and attendant. And as his parentage is, so also are his fortunes. In the first place, he is always poor, and anything but tender and fair, as the many imagine him. He is rough and squalid, and has no shoes, nor house to dwell in. On the bare earth exposed, he lies under the open heaven, in the streets or at the doors of houses, taking his rest, and like his mother, he is always in distress. Like his father too, whom he partially resembles, he is always plotting against the fair and good. He is bold, enterprising, strong, a mighty hunter, always weaving some intrigue or other, keen in the pursuit of wisdom, fertile in all resources, a philosopher at times, terrible as an enchanter, sorcerer, sophist. He is by nature neither mortal nor immortal, but alive and flourishing at one moment when he is in plenty, and dead at another moment, and again alive by reason of his Father's nature. But that which is always flowing in is always flowing out, and so he is never in want and never in wealth. And further, he is in a mean between ignorance and knowledge. The truth of the matter is this: no god is a philosopher or seeker after wisdom, or for he is wise already, nor does any man who is wise seek after wisdom. Neither do the ignorant seek after wisdom, for herein is the evil of ignorance, that he who is neither good nor wise is nevertheless satisfied with himself. He has no desire for that of which he feels no want. But who then, Diotima, I said, are the lovers of wisdom, if they are neither the wise nor the foolish? A child may answer that question, she replied. There are those who are in a mean between the two. Love is one of them, for wisdom is a most beautiful thing, and love is of the beautiful, and therefore love is also a philosopher or lover of wisdom. And being a lover of wisdom is in a mean between the wise and the ignorant. And of this too his birth is the cause, for his father is wealthy and wise, and his mother poor and foolish. Such, my dear Socrates, is the nature of the spirit Love. The error in your conception of him was very natural, and, as I imagine from what you say, has arisen out of a confusion of love and the beloved, which made you think that love was all beautiful. For the beloved is the truly beautiful and delicate and perfect and blessed, but the principle of love is of another nature, and is such as I have described. So we'll now move into the section of the Republic, and this one is not written the same way as the other one, so you don't need that sort of preamble. I listened in admiration, and wanting to draw him out that he might go on. Yes, Cephalus, I said, but I rather suspect that people in general are not convinced by you when you speak thus. They think that old age sits lightly upon you, not because of your happy disposition, but because you are rich, and wealth is known to be a great comforter. You are right, he replied. They are not convinced, and there is something in what they say, not, however, so much as they imagine. I might answer them as Themistocles answered the Seriphian, who was abusing him and saying that he was famous, not for his own merits, but because he was an Athenian. If you had been a native of my country, or I yours, neither of us would have been famous. And to those who are not rich and are impatient of old age, the same reply be made. For to the good poor man old age cannot be a light burden, nor can a bad rich man ever have peace within himself. May I ask, Cephalus, whether your fortune was for the most part inherited or acquired by you? Acquired, Socrates. Do you want to know how much I acquired? In the art of making money, I have been midway between my father and grandfather. For my grandfather, whose name I bear, doubled and trebled the value of his patrimony, that which he inherited being much what I possess now. But my father, Lysanias, reduced the property below what it is at present, and I shall be satisfied if I leave to these my sons not less but a little more than I received. That was why I asked you the question, I replied, because I see that you are indifferent about money, which is a characteristic rather of those who have inherited their fortunes than of those who have acquired them. The makers of fortune have a second love of money as the creation of their own, resembling the affection of authors for their own poems, or of parents for their children, besides that natural love of it, for the sake of use and profit which is common to them and all men. And hence they are very bad company, for they can talk about nothing but the praises of wealth. That is true, he says. Yes, that is very true. But may I ask another question? What do you consider to be the greatest blessing which you have reaped from your wealth? One, he said, of which I could not expect easily to convince others. For let me tell you, Socrates, that when a man thinks himself to be near death, fears and cares enter his mind which he has never had before. The tales of a world below, and the punishment which is exacted there of deeds done here, were once the laughing matter to him. But now he is tormented with the thought that they might be true. Either from weakness of age or because he is now drawing nearer to that other place, he has a clearer view of these things. Suspicions and alarms crowd thickly upon him, and he begins to reflect and consider what wrongs he has done to others. And when he finds that the sum of his transgressions is great, he will many a time, like a child, start up in his sleep for fear, and he is filled with dark forebodings. But to him who is conscious of no sin, sweet hope, as Pindar charmingly says, is the kind nurse of his age. Hope, he says, cherishes the soul of him who lives in justice and holiness, and is the nurse of his age and the companion of his journey. Hope which is the mightiest to sway the restless soul of man. How admirable are his words! And the great blessing of riches, I do not say to every man, but to a good man, is, that he has had no occasion to deceive nor to defraud others, either intentionally or unintentionally, and when he departs the world below, he is not in any apprehension about offerings due to the gods, or debts which he owes to men. Now, to this peace of mind, con- the possession of wealth greatly contributes, and therefore I say that setting one thing aside against another, of the many advantages which wealth has to give, to a man of sense, this, in my opinion, is the greatest. Well said, Cephalus, I replied. But as concerning justice, what is it? To speak truth and to pay your debts, no more than this? And even to this are there not exceptions? Suppose the friend, when in his right mind, has deposited arms with me, and he asks for them when he is not in his right mind. Ought I to give them back to him? No one would say that I ought, or that I should be right in doing so, any more than they would say that you ought always to speak the truth to one who is in his condition. You are quite right, he replied. But then I said speaking the truth and paying your debts is not a correct definition of justice. Correct, Socrates, if Simonides is to be believed, Polemarchus interposing. I fear, said Cephalus, that I must go now, for I have to look after the sacrifices and hand the argument over to Polemarchus and the company. Is Polemarchus not no, is not Polemarchus your heir? I said. To be sure, he answered, and went away laughing to the sacrifices. Okay, so that was the end of today. Because it's the holiday season, I'm just going to be really short. Anyway, there are all kinds of wealth around the holiday season. There's good gifting of wealth and all sorts of things. So today I want to talk a little less about the evils of wealth that I covered in my last video and getting it and greed, but the ways you can use wealth for good. And say, for example, one of the big ones that is a trend this year and was last year is the angel tree shopping, which is a wonderful thing that you can do this year to use your wealth to bring joy to other people. So there is also wealth in family, wealth in religious tradition, and all of these things are types of wealth that should be loved and valued, especially at this time of year when it is often dark out in the world. So yeah, that was all I was going to say, and we will now move into the ritual portion of the observance, and I will play the video. We leave this offering for our gods to symbolize our connection and devotion. We gift this rock to symbolize the stability of the gods in our world. We gift this water to accept the flow of our lives. We welcome life and bless our offerings with oil to share our riches. We embrace our connection to each other and the world and celebrate our revival. And we'll now move into the closing words. And you can do as regular and listen as I read them aloud or read them aloud along with me. As we move out into the world, let us remember our community of faith. Cherish love and open your heart as you walk through life. Hold dear the light of the gods and our connection to the natural world. Go forth in celebration and carry the light of connection within your heart.